Have you ever watched a movie that just, well, completely changed how you think about something huge, like time or maybe love, or even where humanity is headed? Makes you wonder, especially now, what really matters when things feel, uncertain. Today we're doing a deep dive into a film that tackles all of that. Christopher Nolan's epic 2014 movie, Interstellar. So, our mission, using the sources you've given us, is really pull out the key insights, the big ideas about this amazing sci-fi film. Okay, let's unpack this. First off, the setting. It's Earth, but not looking good. Near future. Blight is wiping out crops. Our sources really paint a grim picture. Climate disasters, food running out, humanity's basically on the edge. And there's this one desperate last hope mission. Yeah, it's a pretty dire situation. They introduced Joseph Cooper. He used to be a NASA pilot, and he gets pulled back in for this absolutely critical mission. It's literally about saving everyone. The goal, travel through this mysterious wormhole they found out near Saturn. Try and find a new home for mankind somewhere out there. But the core of it, emotionally, is him having to leave his daughter, Murph. It's gut-wrenching.
Right. And what's fascinating here, what the sources really hone in on, is how the film right away grounds this huge sci-fi idea. It grounds it in a crisis we can kind of understand, and this incredibly personal sacrifice. It's not just saving the world, it's a father leaving his child. Sets the stakes so high immediately.
Absolutely. And those emotional stakes, they're carried so well by the cast. Our sources talk a lot about Matthew McConaughey as Cooper. Many call it one of his best performances.
Yeah.
Like, there's this one source detailing that scene with the video messages. Apparently, his reaction, that raw grief, wasn't entirely scripted. It was just like pure emotion coming through.
Yeah.
Really vulnerable for a sci-fi hero.
Yeah, incredibly powerful.
And then you've got Jessica Chastain as the older Murph. The sources describe her performance as, well, just compelling. She captures all that pain, but also the love and this fierce scientific drive she has later on. And Anne Hathaway as Dr. Brand. Your materials note her quiet strength. She's often stuck between the mission's logic and, well, human feelings.
Exactly. And that's the key, isn't it? The whole cast manages to anchor this potentially cold, complex sci-fi story in real human feeling. Like the sources point out, that's quite an achievement. You really care about these people, even when they're dealing with, wormholes and black holes.
Okay, so beyond the plot and the great acting, Interstellar goes deeper. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The sources show how it tackles these big philosophical ideas. First up, time, relativity. The film really leans into this idea, backed by science, as the sources confirm, that time isn't fixed. Gravity messes with it.
Right. It flows differently depending on where you are.
And the consequences for the characters are
Yeah.
just brutal. Minutes on one planet meaning decades back home.
It's mind-bending. And then connecting to that is this idea of love as a force. This is probably one of the film's boldest, maybe most debated concepts. Our sources discuss how the film suggests love might be more than just emotion, maybe some kind of connection or communication that works across dimensions.
Yeah, like it transcends physics as we know it.
Exactly. It pushes you to think, are there things about the universe we just don't get yet?
And running through everything is this theme of sacrifice and hope. Cooper's journey, as multiple sources point out, it's all about sacrifice, not just for his kids, but for everyone, for the future generations.
And this really raises an important question, doesn't it? Some articles touch on this, how these themes make us think about our own values. What are we willing to give up for the future, for people we'll never meet? That idea of intergenerational responsibility feels very relevant.
Definitely. Now, besides the story, the film is just, well, an experience for the senses. Let's talk about Hans Zimmer's score. Our sources pretty much universally call it iconic, emotionally charged, haunting. You just don't forget it.
Oh, absolutely unforgettable.
And that use of the organ. One source argues it gives the whole thing this, like, spiritual feeling, almost religious awe, matching the scale of space.
It really does elevate it.
And specific tracks, like No Time for Caution, the docking sequence.
Legendary.
Yeah, the sources call it legendary. It's not just music under the scene. It feels like it's driving the scene.
Yeah.
The tension, the awe, it's incredible.
It's perfectly integrated.
Then there are the visuals. Van Hoytema's cinematography. Just wow. That black hole. Gargantua, which the sources define as this super dense spot where gravity traps even light. And the wormhole sequences, the different planets, it's all just jaw-dropping to look at.
Visually stunning, yeah.
And they used a mix of IMAX filming and practical effects.
Yeah.
Right? The sources say this combination makes it feel so immersive, like you're really out there in space.
Right. And what's fascinating, truly groundbreaking actually, is the science behind Gargantua. As the sources detail, Kip Thorne, the physicist consultant, ensured the rendering was scientifically accurate. So accurate, in fact.
It actually helps science.
Yeah, it actually contributed to real astrophysics. They generated new visualizations, new ideas about what accreting black holes might look like. It wasn't just movie magic.
That's incredible. And that leads perfectly into the science behind the fiction. The film really does have this strong scientific backbone, largely thanks to Kip Thorne being involved so heavily.
Absolutely. He was key.
Concepts like time dilation gravity, literally slowing time down, or thinking about extra dimensions. They're handled really carefully. The sources highlight how it's not just jargon. These concepts drive the plot. Like, spending a few hours on Miller's water planet cost them 23 years.
Exactly. That's the genius of it.
It creates these impossible choices for Cooper, reinforcing those themes of time and sacrifice.
Precisely. These complex ideas, as the sources explain so well, aren't just window dressing. They're absolutely integral to the story, to the emotional core. They actually make these big, abstract scientific principles feel personal and impactful, makes them accessible.
Right, but okay, like any really ambitious film, Interstellar wasn't universally loved. It has its critics, and our sources mention these too. Some people, for instance, felt the runtime was maybe a bit too long.
It is a long film, yeah.
And the ending. Well, some found it maybe too abstract. A bit ambiguous, perhaps.
It definitely goes into more speculative territory there.
And that mix, the deep emotion plus the heavy science, it's intense. It might not click with everyone. One source kind of puts it as a film you either fully buy into or find a bit challenging.
It asks a lot of the viewer.
And that third act especially, where it leans more into the fiction part of science fiction, or away from the hard science, that definitely divided people, according to the articles. Lots of debate there.
And that's natural, isn't it? That's what the sources seem to suggest. It's what happens when a film really pushes boundaries, creatively and scientifically. Those criticisms are part of the conversation because it took those risks. They actually highlight its value as something that makes you think and discuss, you know? Different interpretations are welcome.
So, wrapping it all up, what's the overall take on Interstellar based on these sources? The consensus seems pretty clear. It's seen as much more than just a movie. It's an experience, emotional, intellectual, cinematic.
Definitely an experience.
It's praised for asking huge questions about love, time, survival, while also delivering these absolutely stunning visuals that, pushed what cinema could do.
Right, achieving both that intellectual depth and that really powerful emotional hit.
It's a film, as the sources conclude, that sticks with you long after you've watched it. Really cements its place as a modern sci-fi masterpiece. A must-watch if you enjoy cinema that makes you think and feel on a grand scale.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, that was quite a journey through Interstellar, looking at its science, its heart, its impact, all through the lens of these sources.
Yeah, it covers so much ground.
So, thinking about the film's big ideas, love maybe crossing dimensions, the sacrifices made for the future.
What does this deep dive leave you, our listener, thinking about? What about our own connections, our own responsibilities, facing the challenges we have today? Something to ponder, perhaps.